Oh, okay. Does it
Hey, how
sound
you
okay?
doing? I'm
I'm
Chris
doing
Watson.
good. How are you?
How's it going? This is oh, sorry, I guess I should start out with episode 90 of the Podunk Polybath podcast. Everything's fucked up. Um I don't know what's going on. I can't get anything to work. But I will say this, new headphones I'm gonna have to get. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Hangouts on Air is going out of business, or it's being deprecated, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm setting up something else so I can still record. I'm working on that. Probably end up going to be through Skype or something and going through YouTube. But anyway, this week I have with me a friend of mine who gets me drunk all the time, and they happen to be they happen to be a teacher, and they're cool. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. No prep as usual. So anyway, how's it going, Nico?
It's pretty good. How's it going, Chris?
Tell everybody. Blah, let's try that again. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. Um, let's see. I currently live in the hell state of Bama. Um, I have a degree in elementary education, certified K-6 from Athens State University, and I taught in Missouri for a few years before we moved back to Bama. And because the school systems down here are so shitty, I decided to work as a after school tutor. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay. So originally, damn it. Sorry, we're having cat issues here. So we had actually, first of all, I wanted to mention that we were down. This isn't really supposed to be what we're talking about, but I don't care. We were down. I was down in Huntsville last weekend, and we
Yep.
we went. There was the abortion protest down there. Unless anybody else has
Yeah,
had.
we had a rally. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that we held rallies across the state on Sunday to protest the new abortion bills that are being passed. In fact, the House, the one that we protested against Sunday was horrible, but then the House passed one Tuesday that kind of makes that one look laughable. So things are going from, I don't know, like hellfire to Hades, and it's getting ridiculous down here.
What's this other one? I hadn't heard about that one.
So there are a group of people who don't know what science is. Shocker. And most of them are GOP Republicans, politicians. They decided that the abortion bill that they passed wasn't enough, and now they have written a new bill that states that the wording they use, any baby that is born alive, the doctor must use all necessary means to keep the child alive. And this is because they think that when an abortion happens, they take the fetus out and then kill it once it leaves the body. So they have no, they really don't have any understanding of how an abortion works, but they have gotten it through their head that basically the child is born alive and then it is killed. Um, I've also heard it as an explanation that the only abortions that would be legal if this passes and they push it would be as if it's a stillborn. If they know that the fetus is no longer viable and not alive, and then they can do an abortion. So basically, a stillborn. It's getting stupid down here, y'all.
As if it weren't stupid enough already.
I
I
know
mean,
it makes the brain hurt.
actually, I had heard about that now that you mention it. I
Yeah,
guess,
I'm probably I'm probably not wording it right. I've only quickly ran through the bill and had a couple of discussions with people who know more than me. But that's kind of my take on it right now.
Well, it's ridiculous regardless. I mean, yeah, what do they think happens? I don't understand what they think. I don't get it.
I,
I just don't get it. I mean, I do get it because they're just idiots. Idiots elect idiots, and it's a fucking never ending fucking circle, you know.
and idiots will continue to elect idiots because I don't have the stats right in front of me, but Alabama is either 49th or 50th in the state in education. We spend significantly less per student than other states, especially shocker states that are in the west and northeast. So they're not putting money into education. So these people are coming out barely being able to read. We're incarcerating African Americans at a ridiculous rate, and once you get that continuous loop of dumb electing dumb, and then the people in power refusing to fund education so that their citizens better themselves, you can't really get away from it.
Well, yeah, so that's cheery. I was Yeah, I was down there for the thing last weekend, and it was in Huntsville, which is like a blue dot in the state. And uh,
Yeah.
I've met some cool new people, friends of yours, and I also got to wear my shirt. My the only real Confederate flag, the only Confederate flag that mattered shirt, and it's the white surrender flag. So that got a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
big hit. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, let's kind of. I mean, that's obviously everybody knows about that too, which is horrible. But what I kind of wanted, since you're a teacher, I wanted to get kind of your thoughts on like lately. Well, I mean, it's been going on for a while, like a couple of years. If anybody's been paying attention with the teacher strikes, basically because, and of course, they're greedy. It's they make so much money that they just can't get enough
Mhm.
money, and they want more of that
Yeah.
green, baby. Give me the green. No, actually, they don't get paid shit. And it's,
No, no, we don't.
I think it started in West Virginia. I want to say maybe a couple of years ago now, when they really got out there and fought for a pay raise and really just a better education for their students. And it was kind of a
Hmm.
wildcat strike because as anybody knows who lives in the red states, you're not allowed to strike over anything. So they destroyed the union.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
so go ahead.
Well, West Virginia is of course a red state, and they did have. There's just been this new wave in the past couple of years of teachers that are really starting to, be. I mean, we've been fed up for decades, but West Virginia did strike recently, and I want to say it was 2016. I could be wrong,
Yeah,
um, but they are a red state, and their politicians have been slowly rolling back the protections for union workers. So they're trying their best to get rid of that. And of course, it was the teachers' unions that are leading a lot of these strikes. And West Virginia spends, I don't have percentages in front of me, and I don't like stating facts that I'm not 100% sure on, but they don't spend near as much money per student as they should. And while teachers make well below, um, like most teachers in some states like Oklahoma, California, West Virginia, they don't make enough to live on. They work multiple jobs. So yeah, we would like to get paid better, but when you're only spending around annually $5,500 per student, you don't have what you need to properly teach your kids, and that means we're not going to let our kids go without. That is a lovely cat. We're not going to let our kids go without. So a lot of times, whatever the school can't give us, we'll go out and spend our own money on what's needed for our kids.
Just an aside, Nico fucking hates cats. So,
Well, I'm allergic to them, and that tends. Um, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that.
and I have one on my chest. So, and she's just like, oh, she's so lovely. Oh, look at the lovely tuxedo cat. You want to come a little closer? Okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of it's about. I mean, from my vantage point, it's been about mostly about students. Don't get enough money for students. I mean, they're having to pay out of pocket for a lot of student like basic shit, like fucking school
Yeah.
supplies and shit. I mean,
We when it's like in the summers in between, we do everything we can to get ready for the school year, and a lot of that is spreading out slowly the supplies that we need. I mean, kids get a list at the beginning of the school year, stuff that they need to bring into school, and it's usually stuff like, 12 pencils, a couple of pinkies. Like these are pinkies are those big pink erasers. If you don't know what those are, a couple notebooks and some folders, pair of scissors, glue, box of crayons, and that's basically that's the most basic list that a school sends home for a student to bring in. What they don't tell you is that those 12 pencils that kid's bringing in are going to be gone in a week because kids break pencils and they bite their pencils and they throw their pencils. They sharpen them nonstop. So within 2 weeks, a lot of the pencils that the kids have brought in are gone, and that's where where the kid supplies in. That's where the student supplies in. That's where the teachers have to step in. So I began each school year. I would have 2 notebooks per kid and 2 comp journals per kid. And then I kept a bucket full of pencils. I had to buy all my ink pens for editing, and there's just so much stuff that you have to teach them, and you don't have the supplies you need in your classroom. And if you don't have what you need, then you can't teach them. And if you can't teach them, then they fail those end of the year tests. And if they fail the end of the year test, you're screwed.
yeah, because it's all about testing now.
It is.
I mean, who gives a fuck actually teaching them anything? Just teach you the fucking test.
And it is. And ironically, I'm sure this won't surprise you, but I think there's somewhere around 140 school districts in Alabama. The richest school districts spend the most money per student, and those are the districts that have higher test scores. Um, the poor schools have less money per student, don't have the supplies they need, don't have tutors and teacher aides, don't have, we have a higher student, we have higher, we have more kids per class. And we're the ones that have the lowest scores, and that affects our funding from the state.
So it's a vicious cycle.
It is. Rich districts know that their kids need to be educated, so they put money into the school. Poor parents know their kids need to be educated too, but we don't always have the funds necessary in some of these poorer areas to raise taxes. Um, rich districts don't think twice about hiking taxes to pay for education, and in poor areas, you get down to every penny really does count. We really do need this, and we don't fund our schools like we should, and it shows. It reflects in how that happens. Ironically enough, Huntsville City uh, has dozens of schools in it, and there seems to be this divide. I have no idea why, but schools in a certain part of the town, they do just fine. They have all the technology. They have really small class sizes. They have these brand new buildings that are amazing. And then schools in another part of the town have 30 plus kids per class. no textbooks, no supplies, high teacher turnover. It's just I can't put my finger on it, but
Is there
uh,
melanin like darker? Maybe.
that might be where I would put my finger. Yeah, yeah. So,
Well, I'm surprised the white
I
kids.
I,
All right, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't want to I worked briefly in the area, and those kids in those schools on that side of town are absolutely incredible, and I loved them, and I loved working with them every day. I just wish uh, the city had seen them as being worth as much as their across town peers.
Well, I'm surprised actually that the white kids even were in public school anyway, because the trend I've been
Well,
seeing
we do have several. Hmm.
is
We have a
private.
lot of private schools around here. We have a lot of homeschooling groups around here. Uh, but if you live in a certain part of Huntsville, the elementary school you get to go to, it's pretty comparable to some of the private schools around here. Um, and if both of your parents work all day and they can't homeschool you, and your public school is perfectly fine, there's no problem with it, then why would you pay to send your kid to a private school?
That's true. But I mean, I just saw a story a couple days ago about how segregation is the worst it's been since they got rid of it. It's been outlawed or whatever. Um, and it's not official segregation, but it's de facto. I mean, all the white
It
kids going
is.
to private schools, black kids go to black schools, Hispanic school. I mean, it's just going right back to where
Mhm.
it was.
The the school that I worked briefly in down here, um, we had, I think it was 95% African American, and what was left over was a good chunk of that was Hispanic, and then there was maybe 1% white kids. It was a true Title I school. We fed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They got free breakfast, they got free lunch. We sent them home with a bag of food at the end of the day for dinner so that they could eat. It seems like they tried really hard to put food in those kids' stomachs, but they didn't do too much to put knowledge in their heads. And now, noting that Maslow's hierarchy of needs does state that basic needs must be met before you can begin building up. So, food, shelter, safety are the first three things we have to make sure our kids have. And we did focus on the food part, but anything above that in the hierarchy of needs, we just kind of was sorry that was loud. There wasn't much we could do. Um, we tried. We did what we could.
So, of course, this is just a part and parcel of the larger socioeconomic issues that all combine together with poverty, lack of education, lack of decent health care, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think they kind of all feed into each other. Um, I just, I don't know. But as far as the education part goes, have you met any people or, been in any sort of contact with people who have been parts of those strikes in other states?
No, we haven't had strikes going on down here in Alabama, and while I was in Missouri teaching, we didn't have any. I see. I think it's we both have a friend in common who is a teacher in one of those states, and her viewpoint was really interesting, and it was along the same lines. It's just a lot of people think we're just doing this because we don't get enough money, and then a lot of people are like, hey, you already get 3 months off a year, why in the world are you striking? You can't, it's like you're wanting another vacation. Like, they think that we don't go home and work all summer long to do what has to be done for the next year. And I want to say that striking, for a teacher to go on a strike, for a teacher to go on strike, and for those kids not to have a safe place to go during the day where they get fed, it is the absolute last thing that we want to do, because a lot of us who teach in those less fortunate areas where we have high poverty and there's a lot of gang activity, parents work multiple jobs. Um, we look forward each day to seeing them come to school because we know when they walk in the door with us, they're safe until they walk out of the door with us. Um, so when we strike, when teachers go on strike, those kids aren't coming someplace where they get fed. They're not coming someplace where we know they're safe. They're sitting at home or in another location where their parents hope that they're okay. Uh, I, a teacher does not want to go on strike, but at the same time, if we keep doing what we've always done, we're always going to get what we've always had, which is a broken education system, kids that are not ready to be in the, to go to work. They can't function in society because they don't have the education they need. They don't have, there is such a huge difference between rich white kids and no matter what color your skin is, poverty. I currently work as an after school tutor, and I see these kids that come in with their parents bringing them in, and I work with just the littles, K through 6, when I do my tutoring, but we also do tutoring for ACT to help kids pass, and not just to pass. We're helping these kids score perfect on the ACT and the SAT. Now, we're not doing this whole scandal. There's nothing wrong or illegal about what they're doing, but the kids that get to come in and work, our first question is like, hey, what'd you make on the test? And like, I made like a 27 or a 28, and I want to get like a 31 or a 32. I made a 21 on my ACT, and I freaking danced in the hallway. Um, but these super rich kids whose parents can throw down a few $100s or $1,000 for classes, um, these higher scores get them into the better colleges, which means they get a better education, and they've got that really impressive college on their resumes when they go out, so they're going to get the better jobs, so they're going to make more money. Yeah. And kids in poverty areas don't have those opportunities because moms and dads can't afford to take them to tutoring that they need.
Well, tutoring's one thing, and yeah, everybody should have access to that regardless, I think. But of
Yeah.
course, the whole fucking scandal thing was just they were paying off people. They weren't even trying. They were just straight up fucking paying off. They paid off some dude to say they were giving him sports scholarships to some school, to some sport they never even played
Yeah.
before, and shit like that. Just crazy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was messed up, but my point of it is that the wealthier areas have the better schools, and those kids not only get the better education, but they have access to outside tutoring. It's just like we're piling on everything we can to help them, and we're taking away everything that our kids need in other areas. So
Yeah, it's just a fucked up issue altogether. I mean, and I'm trying to remember the latest strike that I've heard of. I'm trying to think of all the
uh,
states. Go ahead.
okay, so California California teachers get paid compared to other areas, they get paid really well, but cost of living is ridiculous out there, obviously. California has had a strike, New Mexico, Oklahoma, West Virginia. There were a few others that I read about when because I keep track of all of this, and I know those for sure. I'm wanting to say Arizona, but I could be wrong. And I think there was another Midwest state that had.
Chicago had one.
Um, yes, well, Chicago, yeah,
That was
they,
a big one. That was
yeah.
that thing was huge because they took on Rahm Emanuel and he wasn't too happy about that.
Well, I wish people would stop saying we're doing this for a vacation or that we're doing this just because we want to make more money. Yeah, we need to make more money. My starting pay as a teacher was 29,000. Um, yeah, that's it's horrible. I mean, you can't live on your own with that. And I have two kids. I have another income in my house, so that's great. But um, I could not have that job and support myself, let alone two children. So think about these people like, well, they make $40,000 a year teaching. Yeah, but how much is rent? How much are they paying? How much are they ever going to be able to afford to buy a house? We can't pay back our student loans. We went to school to become a teacher because that is our passion. And I'm good at what I do. Like, I don't like to brag about it, but I'm really good at what I do. And I want to keep doing it, but I can't afford to keep doing it. I've got to have a job where I can pay back my student loans. And teaching isn't going to be it. And I'll never be able to go out and buy my own car, buy my own house. But it's not about money. It's more about they are not giving our students what they need to be successful. And to help our students be successful, we're spending so much of our own money on supplies, on I can't even begin to get into how what we actually spend our money on. It's you would but we we want to help them that way. We need them to be successful, and if our schools aren't going to help our kids be successful, then they're our kids. We're going to do what we have to do.
Yeah, I think that's the big, that's one of the big, and of course, that's always the fact that the powerful always try to play the less powerful off against each other. So one of the things that are usually done is like, look at those damn teachers trying to get more money than you, instead of the fact that, well, we all need to be making more money and taking it from the rich fuckers. They forget about that part, but they don't want you to remember that. You know.
There's this whole push to make minimum wage like $15 an hour, which, by the way, I completely agree with. It needs to be. But at $15 an hour, they will be making more than what most teachers do. And they say, "Oh, you go to school at 8 and you leave at 3:30." No, we get there at like 6:30, 7 o'clock. Um, I was always one that went in early and left on time because I have kids, and on time is 4 o'clock. But there are some that go in early and they stay till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and we go home, and it doesn't stop. I mean, at least at the minimum, we're putting in 60 hours a week because we have everything we have to do in the classrooms, and then we go home and we do all of our grading, and we put our grades in the grade book, and then we write our grades in a manual grade book, plus we have to put them in a computer. And then we have to grade all of these assessments that they tell us we have to do, and then we have to put all of those assessments into a program to determine what our student growth rate was. Then we have to write these stupid papers about professional development and growth. Like, what are we going to do in our class? What's our objective? What's our goal? Did we meet this? So we have to do all of that. We have to continue to get either college hours or whatever to keep our certification current. And then we still have to make our lesson plans. And almost every teacher I know did their lesson plans on the weekend. So you don't have a day off. There is no such thing as, you know, leaving your work at home or taking the weekend off. It doesn't happen.
I just wonder. I mean, I assume there's some states where it's not fucking the worst thing ever. I mean, what is the best state for teaching?
I've been told that New York is really good. And then one of our friends, certain parts of California are good. And then one of our friends had told me something, and I can't remember what it was, but I've heard New York and parts of California are good. There was another one, and I can't remember. Maybe it was Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's probably.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
And of
blue.
course, we can see what all those states have in common.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. And what kind of surprised me, California was one of the states. I mean, of course, the reason they do that anyway, because I mean, you don't get anything unless you fight for it, and they got to keep fighting for anything
Mhm.
anyway. So I mean, even if people think California is some fucking liberal paradise or whatever, there's people. I mean, go out there and see fucking the cost of living, like you said, it's crazy. I mean,
And and to reiterate what we've been saying, the rich areas get better. They have more money and they have more better supplies. And there are places like in parts of LA and where you have a large minority population and you have high poverty. Excuse me. So while some parts of California are doing really good jobs and their schools are excellent and their teachers are making decent pay, that's not the case everywhere. And of course, teacher pay is not like everyone gets the same amount in Alabama for however many years. Um, the pay depends on the district and what the district can give you. So the richer areas where they're able to put in more money from the local taxes, they can pay their teachers more. So that's where they draw on the best talent and they keep that talent there. They don't have a high teacher turnover. And why is that important? Why is it important that they don't have new teachers every year? Well, you don't have to keep training people. You have teachers that understand your curriculum. They know the kids. They know what they need to do. When you've got new teachers coming in every year, it, there's no stability in it for the school. There's no stability in it for the kids. These kids get attached to their teachers, and that's just another person that's going to leave them. And not a single teacher I know would. We fall in love with our kids, and there are kids from August until May. Um, and no matter how much we leave them, it still comes down to I got to be able to put food on the table for my kids at home.
yeah, let's talk about a little bit about the whole difference between the the richer school districts and the poorer school districts. I mean, so I'm sure anybody with half a brain could tell that those districts tend to be whiter, like predominantly. And as an example, I know that Memphis, of course, is majority black, right? But you go into those outer suburbs, oh man, it's just super rich whitey town or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah. My husband has a cousin who lives in one of those super rich whitey places.
it's just wow. I mean, they tried to. I don't know if they ever succeeded or not, but I know that because technically they're a part of the same county, Shelby County, but they were trying to make their own school district because they didn't want to be, saddled with those poor black kids in, the inner city or whatever, I guess. Um,
I don't know what happened with that. I'm familiar with it, but I don't know what happened.
but I mean, that's not a fight. I mean, that fight's been going on everywhere. Uh,
Yes.
this whole idea of, I don't know, that they want the best for their kids, but somehow other people wanting the same thing because they are poor and a different color somehow is just bad. I don't
Uh,
really understand the logic behind that.
that's kind of a mentality of America these days. Um, I need what's best for me, but screw you. And we seem to forget that when we all work together and help each other get what everyone needs, then um, we're all better off. But it's not that way. The rich want to keep getting richer and keep their kids in these little protected pockets of just white rich kids. And man, there's some kids that would be go through culture shock if they left their lily white school in South Huntsville and went into some of these other schools that I've seen. I didn't know what to do.
Well, hell, I
Another
mean,
video.
they wouldn't know what to do with seeing people that weren't white.
Yeah.
I mean, much
You know,
less.
I grew up in a yeah, I grew up in a racist town, and I remember the first time I saw a black person, and it sticks with me because we were going into Walmart and a black person was walking toward us, and my mother yanked my hand away and made me walk to the other side of the store. Um, so yeah, a lot of us leave those types of communities, and we have a whole other world to learn about, and we have to re-educate ourselves because we've been taught to hate for so long.
God, I mean, that's bold. I mean, of course, I'm from the South, obviously, and of course there are certain cues that you pick up on, but that's nothing. I don't think my parents are ever anything like. I mean, my dad said the N word when I was younger, I think, but my mom was never like that. You know, you know.
My mom does and still does. Yeah.
So I mean, that's a fact of life for a lot of people, and I'm not excusing it, obviously, but people who try to, like you, who come out of it and try to change things and try to change their outlook on stuff. People like that, I've always admired people who come out of situations like that and are better people for it because it's not easy coming out of something that you're so used to.
Mm-mm.
Um,
No, it was good. I was raised to be a racist Christian, racist Christian, a racist Christian Republican, and I rebelled against that and so much more. Um, and I feel like sometimes I feel like I went into education because that was the way I could make up for so many of the stupid things I did and said when I didn't know any better. And um, working in poverty, low poverty or high poverty schools with that subset of the population has it's really made me look back at how I was raised and in the environment I was raised in and see how even though how even though my childhood was absolutely horrific, um, we had it pretty good in our school, and it's it's odd to think about how far apart we are and how far apart we continue to grow just because we won't let just because we don't think that someone who doesn't look like us is that they're not worth as much as we are. And I'd hate to see what is going to happen to this country in another 10 years if we continue to raise our children that way.
well, that's a whole other. That's a whole other.
Yeah, it is. But it all does go back to education. The the rift grows wider when we don't take care of our kids.
Yeah, and the South is ground zero for that sort of thing. I think. I mean, not just the South. I
Mhm.
mean, but there are other, generally there are red states where education is so bad that uh, it really manifests itself in these sort of ways that you're talking about.
Mhm.
So I wonder if, like, are there like signs of any of hope at all in certain areas? I mean, I'm sure there are, and in red states where like I know uh, there are certain programs that are trying to be innovative as far as teaching kids that are not as well off. Uh, I don't know what the I haven't seen many of them lately. Nashville's bad as far as, and they're supposed to be blue. So I mean,
Yeah. Wow.
it's I don't know. I I I,
Um,
I have a hard time with being positive on stuff anyway, though. So
um, Nashville, much like I live in Madison, and Huntsville are kind of like this. We're just all kinds of up in each other's shit. Your city, your county can be as blue as it wants, but if the government is channeling funds. You know, if your state is red, it doesn't matter how blue your city is, because your state's not going to do anything to help you out. As far as positive, I don't know. I mean, this schools that are Title One schools, they do receive tutoring. The lowest 3% of the school will receive tutoring, and then I don't know how I'm trying to say this, but if you're a Title One school, your kids will get more tutoring in like math and reading. They've taken on programs like Spire that helps kids who have. And my son is dyslexic. He received tutoring using a Spire program. It's an intensive uh, curriculum meant to help students who are dyslexic and who have dyslexia tendencies. Uh, I, I feel like there's some areas that are trying, and I feel like we know that education is. Everyone knows education is important. Everyone knows we need to put more money into education, but knowing that's what we need to do and get government to actually do it, it's just it's not working. Um, and these places that are striking, that's our best bet. Honestly, I don't like the idea of it, but we got to shout louder than we have been. We've got to show them that um, our kids can be more if we will help them.
Well, and yeah, you're right. I mean, power concedes nothing, unless you fucking fight for it, they're not going to give you shit, you know. I mean, even here, even with fighting and what it seems to be a losing, just shouting at the in deaf ears regarding this abortion issue in Alabama and so many other states. And it just seems like it's like dude, these fuckers aren't listening to us, you know. But I mean,
No.
when it comes down to it, you just got to keep doing it. You got to keep trying. I mean, of course, there's the argument where you go bloody revolution, get out the guillotines and all that shit. Yeah, I guess who gets fucked over in those scenarios? Poor
The
people.
poor become cannon fodder. Yeah.
So I mean, it's
Um,
easy to sit there and talk shit like that, but it's a privileged position as far as I'm concerned. It's not. It is frustrating though, to see all this education issues, and it's just I don't know. I guess like you said, it's this ethos, this American ethos of I got mine, fuck you. I think it's always been a thing.
mhm.
This whole idea
It
where
is.
independent, like you're supposed to be an independent spirit and fuck everybody else or whatever.
Oh, well, I don't think America's given two shits about their neighbor since well, I mean, I know we all pulled together during World War II, right? That's how we always hear it. And then we had those socialist programs, socialist FDR and the New Works program, but I I feel like that's the most we've done for our country in 200 years. Is just when you make programs that work for everyone, then everyone succeeds. And when everyone succeeds, you have a better society. And they are doing and I don't care how you put it, like however many times you look at it, however many ways you come at it, and you look at the breakdown of statistics and money and population size, and oh, it's impossible to do this because it's too big. No, just screw all that. It comes right down to this. You're giving the white kids more than you're giving the black kids so that the black kids will continue to be screwed. I have a question. Do you know how Alabama determines how they determine what their projected prison population will be in 10 years?
I'm scared to ask.
Okay, because here's how it works. As you know, that Alabama has the largest for-profit prison system in the country. You know that, right?
I do
Here's
now.
what we do. Here's what we do in this lovely state. Um, did you know that? No, let's start this way. Alabama determines how much money they need to put into their prison system and how many more prisons need or how many more beds they need in prison in 10 years because they look at third grade data. We give those end of the year tests every year. We have to, right? The State Board of Education hands that data over to the people who determine who do the things with the prison, incarceration, whatever the heck it's called. Anyway, if you tell them that in 100 out of 100 kids, there are 28-year-olds who cannot read at a third grade level, then they're going to say, okay, well, in 10 years, those 23rd graders are going to be 18 and they're going to be in prison. We need to plan for that. So basically, what I'm saying is the prison population on a 10-year outlook in Alabama is based on end of year testing to tell them how many third graders cannot read.
Yeah, so instead of using that data to like maybe,
Yeah, there you go.
make it better for them, like help
Yeah,
them.
so instead of well, this is the thing. Instead of taking money and funneling it into education so that those kids have a future, that money goes into our prison system so that they can build prisons to put those kids into. And would you like to take a guess on the color of their skin?
Oh, I don't know, Nico. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of hard to guess. Why don't you give me a little clue?
So that's what Alabama does. We determine our future prison population based off the percentage of 8-year-olds that can't read.
That's the first time I've ever heard anything like that. I mean, I guess it makes sense in some warped, twisted way. I mean,
I first heard it 6 or 7 years ago. I thought maybe when I came back to Alabama a couple years ago, it had changed, and it hasn't. It was another slap in the face when I got back and realized that they're still doing that down here. They're still looking at 8-year-olds and be like, "Oh, you can't read? Well, in 10 years you're going to be in prison. Let's go ahead and make sure you've got a bed."
Alabama doesn't ever. I mean, I lived there for, and of course it's different just living there from being there. I know that, but just driving through the rural areas, it's fucking depressing. I mean, the poverty is just so overwhelming. I mean, it's not just poor people; it is destitution. It is literal shacks. People and what the fucking UN came down there and said it was like a fucking
Third world country.
yeah, it was like a third world. They would have diseases that nobody never see in developed countries anymore. I mean, but you're worried about and education is shit and infant mortality is everything, but you're worried about what controlling women? I don't.
Yeah. I think our infant mortality rate, we're 50th in the 50th in the country in infant mortality rate and 48th in education. Um, and I love these people that stand around and say that. I know this is getting off topic again, but I love these people that stand around and be like, you can't, don't kill that baby. And we're over here like, that's not what we're doing. One, and two, you really cared about this, then you would help us improve. We would have pre-K access for all. We would have education systems that cared for these kids. We would stop like basically funneling our kids from public education systems into the prison population. That's what we're doing. We're raising kids to go to prison because they don't have an education, and they wonder why teachers strike.
Do they? But I mean, it seems to work. I mean, at least in the short term. Um, they've been. I mean, they're not getting. And yeah, let's be clear on this. They're not getting like major concessions. They're getting modest
Yeah.
things they should have been getting anyway. I'm talking about like 5% pay raises or something.
Yes.
And
I feel like we're striking for what we should have already had. And I don't think enough people understand what it really looks like to be a teacher.
well, if they listen at all to you, they'll give some idea. Of course, you don't know it until you actually have to live it. Maybe it's one of those things where you have to literally put people in their shoes. Let these motherfuckers try this shit for a day
Well, um,
or a week.
I think an hour, and some of them will be like, "How do you do this? Why do you do this? What's the point?" Um, I've had some rough days. I have horror stories about teaching, and right now I'm doing after school tutoring because I do not feel safe enough to teach here again. And I and they're like, well, you get 3 months off a year, so that's you don't have to make that much. And I'm like, bitch, my bills come 12 months a year.
Yeah, I mean,
And do they think that we don't have to pay rent when school's not in session?
yeah, I don't get that
It's
logic. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I've known
It's
teachers. Go ahead.
I it is absolutely, you have to laugh to not cry, honestly. It's some of these parents whose kids go to these rich private schools or to these schools in other parts of the town. If they had to come, not sit behind my desk, because please don't ever think that a teacher gets to sit behind their desk during the day, because we don't. Our desk is just a pile for more papers that we need to grade. Um, if they would come in our classroom and try to be us for 1 hour, um, they would probably also need anxiety pills.
Yeah, it's enough to drive anybody crazy. I mean,
We were, like I said, you laugh so you don't cry. We were joking about this the other day, me and a few teacher friends, and when you get hired by a new district, when you get hired as a new hire with like a big district, you do like this teacher orientation thing, and you get this packet. It tells you about all your benefits and everything in the district that you need to know. And my friend and I were joking around about it, and we were like, that packet also needs to include a subscription or a prescription for Xanax and a list of your next few months therapy appointments, because you're going to need meds and you're going to need to talk.
that's true. I mean, well, I don't. I know teachers, and you're not. I know a couple of them, and I don't know any that just sit around on summer, don't do anything. They're either working another job, and that's what people they sign contracts, and they can choose to spread their payout over those 3 months, from what I understand. But I mean, yeah, that's still not enough.
Some districts don't do that. Yeah, some districts don't do that. That's that's not everywhere.
So I mean, even so, I mean, and this of course is defeating the whole point. And this goes, I think, not to just teachers, but just middle. Well, what's left of the middle class, but what the class formerly known as middle. Let's just say, um, is the fact that we've been taking a beating since old Ronnie Reagan came into office and decided that you know take taxes
I
down.
love how people are like, oh god, that man.
So I mean,
We are the party of Reagan. Why would you claim that?
I don't know. I mean, that's what people. I mean, they destroyed the unions, and I mean that was his first. That was his first thing to do was fucking break up that strike at the airport traffic controllers or whatever. He just fired all of them. Oh no, and he took the
Yeah.
solar panels off the White House too. So that's another thing. So
I hadn't heard
Everything,
that one.
yeah,
That.
everything it's symbolic. Everything that Reagan did was symbolic of everything that's been happening in the last, what, 40 years or whatever it's been, 30 years, nearly 40. Yeah, I've been
It's been
alive.
a bit.
Yeah, so maybe it's been about 30, 40 years. Yeah, so I mean, this whole decline of the middle class, the destruction of unions, uh, the social issues, the all that's been the rise of the religious right, all that shit.
Oh,
That's
yes.
that's all pretty much all of our that's your current problems.
I. Oh. I've tried not to go to religion, and
Well,
because I can have a whole other rant like about how religion is in our schools and it's not supposed to be.
oh, well, I don't have any
But
problem.
my second grade teacher made us pray every day before we went to lunch and told us Bible stories when we got back.
Yeah, you're not. I don't think I need to tell anybody listening to this that you're not supposed to do that, but they sneak that shit in there. They don't care,
Yeah.
especially in rural areas. What the fuck? Unless you got, oh, but you get one parent. I mean, if you get the FFRF in there, okay, whatever. But then they'll just go right back to doing it. I mean, it's hard to get, and then they get act like it's you're just, oh my god, these outsiders, and that's always been this way at the South. Though every time, why don't you keep us? We got good black people down here. Why are you riling up our good black people? You know, during the civil rights shit. I mean, we got they were fine until y'all came down here and started fucking things up. So that's the way it's always
Yep.
been down here. It's just they think there's some sort of notch above. There's some sort of outside the realm of the law. They're their own thing. Of course, that comes from the whole Confederacy thing, and that's a whole.
Yeah.
Anyway, so do you
Mm.
see, and kind of wrapping things up, do you see anything getting better anywhere? Or is there any like positive stuff going on anywhere?
No. Uh, well, because of Tennessee's last legislative session, you guys are even more screwed over than you were. Congratulations. Um, and I can tell you exactly who to have on to go off fire and brimstone on how screwed up your legislative is there. But
Oh yeah, I know. I already know who you're talking.
uh, yeah, I mean, so Tennessee is just. I'm sorry, but I don't even think half the people in Tennessee understand the end game right now from what they just did. Uh, but give it a year and it'll sink in, and they'll figure it out. Um, Positive changes. We're talking about it. Um, a lot of people in the country never thought that it was even a problem until the teachers started going on strikes. So I I don't like strikes. I would not want to do it, but I would do it in a heartbeat if it meant giving my kids what they needed. Uh, we're seeing some changes in the places that have done strikes. Um, and then the states that are electing Democratic governors are and the Senate and House. They're doing what they can. Uh, but no, overall. I don't see this getting better anytime soon. We just have to keep talking about it and making sure people are aware that it's a problem. And don't get me started on charter schools. And
Oh god, that's a whole nother
and,
episode.
and yeah, I know. And a lot of people say that that's what's going to save us. And like, no, you really don't get it. Um, I wish I could sit here and tell you that things will get better, but it's kind of like looking at women's rights in the South.
Yep.
We're gonna have to. I can cuss, right?
Yeah, of course.
You're gonna have to burn this motherfucker down and build it back up before it's gonna get better. So, uh, that's education in the South. That's women's rights in the South. That's a good way to describe a lot of things in the South. Burn this motherfucker down, rebuild it, and then we'll see if we can get it right.
Well, that's somebody told me, asked me. I'm like, yeah, just burn the whole thing down and build it. That's what you're gonna have to do. There's too much entrenched shit here
Yeah.
going back since the beginning. You ain't just gonna get rid of that. You thought you was gonna legislate it away, or just because you said it was gonna be so? No, that fucking shit's still there.
Mm.
I don't. It's
And
depressing.
in the South, I don't see them. I really don't see the South doing, especially in states in like Alabama, Mississippi. Those states that are always dead last, Arkansas, Louisiana. I really don't see them doing anything to help their education because we all know what the prison population is today. We know that that's basically legal slavery, and they can't keep black people locked up if black people have an education. No, they're not going to help people get better. Um, it's going to come down to the citizens doing what needs to be done and finding ways to get it done because the government doesn't give two shits about it.
So people power is like it's always been. Just get out there and fucking make your voice heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can do
Yeah.
it, I guess.
We have good examples in the past of people that have led us through change to make it better. So we're just gonna have to look to those examples and start making a hell of a lot more noise than we have been.
And on that note, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. But Nico, thanks for taking time out to talk to me after getting drunk, or at least drinking. I don't know if you got drunk or not.
I was drunk last night,
Oh, that's
so
right. You were drunk last
I was very, very drunk last night. Tonight I'm semi sober, and I had to work tonight, so
night. Oh, yeah.
gotta be good for the kids.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for having me on. I hope my constant ramblings made some sense.
Of course. Do you want to plug anything or anything you want to promote or anything like that?
Um, I don't know what I could. So I will just say, fuck the South and vote blue. And I, I don't know. If you're listening to this and you voted for 45, then why the hell are you listening to this? And I hope change. Is
Yes.
that good?
Yeah, that'll work.
Does that work?
All
Okay. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
right. Well, thanks again. Take it easy.
Okay. Bye. I don't know.